And good evening, everyone. ESS Empire State Sports proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Rio, and Dave Bartlett, myself, and our special guest from 94.7 Hits FM, Java Joel Murphy. Welcome to the program, Joel.
Thanks for having me. I can't believe we're finally doing it. It's like this episode's what, Joey? Probably 8 months in the making, if not more.
At least.
You can blame me for that. You can blame me for that.
It's all good. We're finally doing it. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Well, Joel, I'll get things started. I mean, we're known for doing we're the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. We're known for doing sports. We're not going to break down the Phoenix Suns LA Clippers series with you tonight. If you want to talk some Cleveland Cavaliers, maybe we could do that. But what
I know you just had Derek on, so I won't say go Habs, but it is Canada Day and everything, and
that's true.
Game. I'm wearing my tragically hip shirt, so you know.
But what you do have here are three radio geeks, three guys that grew up with North Country Radio, with Sandy Cook, Dave Cady, Daylight in the Swamp. I remember Dave. Yep. And I know that you started your career up here. So to have you on, I guarantee you the questions are going to be flying because I'm a big fan of radio. And I know that Pete's kind of done some work at some radio stations. So this is how this really all started.
And I have
background getting involved in that. So,
and I have a radio.
That's good.
I did a little stint at WICY. I assisted Polly Wellbridge with some broadcasting, and Joe and Joey and I actually covered for Polly one year when we went to the States out in Onondaga Community College, and covered the FA Husky girls out there, and he couldn't make it. So that's our
WICY is another legendary radio station in that area for sure. I mean, you know, WMSA, WYBG back in the day. That's what I grew up listening to. They don't even exist anymore. WYBG, that was 1050. You know, but yeah, it's a unique area to live in. You know, as far as radio goes, because you have like the best of both worlds. You got these great local stations that serve the communities, and then you have like these big, you know, major market radio stations coming from, you know, Ottawa and Montreal that I grew up listening to. So definitely a very unique area for sure for radio.
Well, Joel, discuss a little bit. Let's start it this way. But talk about your pathway. I knew you growing up as a kid, and I've known your mom and your grandfather and your family as long as I have. I've heard the stories. I've seen your posts on Facebook where, you know, you used to tape on cassette tape, like radio shows from up here. You know, you probably had some around you, I'm sure.
Over there, absolutely.
So talk a little bit about your pathway. What got you inspired and what got you involved in the radio business to begin with?
I always wanted to do it ever since I was 6, you know, and I don't know what, and maybe I was just a product of the environment, just having the radio on all the time and just liking music really early on. I mean, I knew that I wanted to do this since I was 6. I mean, that's when I toured. My mom and my dad and my sister and me, we toured YBG, 1050 YBG. I was 6 when that happened. And then, you know, I remember meeting the midday guy, Lee Stevens. I remember talking to the program director, Carolyn Pelkey. She was the program director. She did the afternoon show. This is 1981, by the way. This is back when, you know, and YBG was only on as a daytimer. They would sign off the air at sundown. So, but at the time, it was like the closest thing we had in Brazier Falls to, like, you know, a station that played, you know, you had WMSA, but they were playing like a lot of country and, you know, a lot of, you know, they would read the school menus and stuff like that. When you're a young kid wanting to hear music, you would listen to YBG. But yeah, I toured the radio station and I caught the bug then. And yeah, like you say, I mean, growing up, I spent a lot of time in my bedroom, you know, recording radio and listening to radio and reading about radio and, you know, reading Billboard magazine and, you know, so, but yeah, I think I was the product of the environment. It was always around, and I was lucky that I knew at that time. But a lot has changed in radio, as you know, since 1981. But Yeah, and then I went to college, went to Oswego for college with the attempt to, get a degree. That didn't work out. I got, I lasted about 3 semesters. That's right. And then they asked me to take a break. You might want to take a break. I took a break, and I got a job at WSNN. 99 Hits FM was what it was called back then. It's B99.3 now. But I got enough experience at SUNY Oswego at the college station where I made a tape and sent my tape around. I probably sent it to WMSA. I apparently didn't have any openings. I ended up going with 99 Hits, but I think I was just a board op at first, just running like Golden Knights games, just running the board. I wasn't even talking. And I think one night they had like some big reunion, it was like a 1994. So it must have been the 30th anniversary of the Beatles landing in America. And they had like a remote broadcast that I ran that, but it ended short. So I had to go on the air. I was like, oh, wow, this is like my big break. So from that point on, I think I started out doing nights at that station. And this is 1994, so it was like adult contemporary radio station. So it was like a lot of Michael Bolton and a lot of Phil Collins and Billy Joel and that kind of format. But then like a year later, I went across the street to WVNC in Canton, which was 96.7 at the time. Dave Button owned that, and it you wouldn't know it by listening to the radio station because the station sounded great, but we were broadcasting from Dave's garage. I mean, the studios were out back of his house on the second floor of his garage. And we would have listeners, come by and, pick up prizes and stuff. They would win prizes on the radio, and they would come. They had no idea that the radio station was coming from this literal garage. I mean, but it sounded great. So I did that for it was Mix 96 in Canton. We called it Mix 96. Yeah. I think there's actually a Mix 96 tribute page now that somebody put together, which is kind of neat. But I was there, and eventually I became program director there. And I wasn't making, you don't make a lot of money up there doing radio, which is why I'm here, unfortunately. So I ended up working for a company called Mediabase, which is a company that they monitor radio stations from across the country. So that enabled me to leave Mix 96 in Canton and just do that, but also do part-time. I was doing part-time. I did some part-time in Watertown. I think I went down to Utica for like 2 months and tried that, and I hated it in Utica at the time. And then I went back to Canton. Did some part-time in Watertown, did some part-time in Syracuse. That eventually opened up to full-time, and that's when I made the move from the North Country to Syracuse, and I haven't been back since. Well, I was back a little bit in 06, but I ended up here. So, but yeah, that's a long time. when I think it down, when I break it down year by year, I get tired. I mean, it's just like I can't believe so much time has elapsed since then. But that's pretty much it. So from Syracuse, I went to Rochester. And then from Rochester, I got the big break to go to Chicago, and that was massive. That was 01. That all happened in a really short amount of time. It happened like a month after 9/11. Here I am on a plane. They flew me into Chicago to interview for this job. And I had never been to Chicago in my life. I knew it was big. I didn't know it was that big. I mean, it was huge. It just blew my mind. And I got the job, which is crazy. And that happened a month after I got married. So 9/11, me getting married, and us moving to Chicago all happened within a matter of 2 months. It was nuts. But yeah, and I did that for 4 years. We were in Chicago for 4 years, and then got the 94.7 Hits FM job in Montreal, and then it came to Cleveland. And I've been doing that remotely from Cleveland since 2006. And then 2006, I got the full-time job here at iHeartRadio in Cleveland as the evening personality at KISS FM. And then eventually I moved to afternoons and a program director. I did that for the last 3 years. So that's kind of the career in a nutshell in the last, almost 30 years, which is nuts. It's crazy. I don't look that old, do I?
No.
All right, that's good. Good.
So you were talking about something, Joel, and I got to bring it up. How many moons ago you said that broadcasting and listening to the radio has changed. Most of us listen to it online now. But I remember years ago, Sandy Cook. My parents were a devoted Sandy Cook fan, and he would be coming up with he would tell us ahead of time what was coming up. So we went and ran and got the cassette tape player, put it in there and got it ready. And when he came back on, we record through the phone, through the radio, and and try to, and then of course we click the tabs out so we could.
You can't record over it, right?
That's right. Or well, you could if you put tape over it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, right.
You cheat, but anyway, when you were talking there, it's like, oh my God, I gotta say this because I know everybody and their cousin in the North Country did the same thing.
Oh yeah,
we all recorded that.
That was before illegal file sharing. So in order to get the songs for free, you had to record them off the radio, right?
Absolutely.
And I tell you, I would love to have old tapes of Sandy Cook on WMSA. I mean, that's one of my. I've been looking for tapes online, of air check tapes of stations from that area for years now, and there's just nothing out there. I would love to get my hands on some vintage, WMSA or YBG or, the old Pack 93. Remember Pack 93? Oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Automated top 40. I tell you, it was all automated. It was all run by machines. Look where we are now, in the same boat, only on a bigger scale, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, and in fact, I do have some baseball and basketball tapes of Sandy calling games back in the high school days. So,
there's a bunch of stuff with Jerry Maynard.
I don't know, but
yeah, there's somebody at the Messina Sports Archive on YouTube. They do. He's uploaded a bunch of audio broadcasts with Jerry Maynard and hockey games and stuff.
Yeah,
those are pretty cool. They go back to like 81, 82, I think. That's pretty cool.
That's all right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's right. We had Jerry on.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we brought up his time as a DJ at MSA. So.
And WPDM, even before MSA, he was at PDM. I remember hearing him doing. I think he was doing afternoons at PDM, like when I was a little kid. Because I remember when he went to MSA, I was like, "Hey, that guy used to be on PDM."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Sandy Cook, I mean, that's a guy who, I mean, he's a legend. He's, that was a big loss. That was a huge. That's a broadcaster. That's a guy who you could have put him on in Chicago. He would have done a great job at WGN in Chicago. I mean, he was that good. I mean, look at the Ice Storm. When people talk about the Ice Storm, they bring him up every time. Every time. He was the beacon for that during that time. That's what a broadcaster does. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. The whole crew at that time, that's at that station. And they're still doing it. I mean, MSA is still like doing what a good radio station does, and they serve the community. I mean, the morning show's still doing, great local content with, with everything going on up there. So, yeah, rest in peace, Sandy Cook, for sure.
We got his replacement on. We had him on, Elijah, and I do.
I saw that too.
I do a monthly show with Elijah. Elijah does. I like what he's doing. He's trying to. He has a different community member on every day of the week for an interview. I'm one of them as an athletic director at SLC. So, but the one thing where Elijah's in a tough spot, and he knows this, but he's getting better, and that's all you can do is get better. Where Sandy is that connection with the community. Sandy knew everything. He could talk to you sports. He could talk politics. He could talk weather. He could talk community. He could talk school. He could cover everything and know everybody.
Right.
And that was where Sandy was the king. He knew. When you heard your name mentioned by Sandy on the radio, it was a big deal because you knew it was genuine. So
yeah. Well, I still listen every morning. I mean, the app was not working this morning, however, or the stream wasn't working this morning. But at 9:00 every morning, me and my son are making breakfast. We listen to the Birthday Club. It's a little. It's a taste of home. It's just a taste of home.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they stream for sure.
Yeah, a couple times a year as kids growing up, we were right next to the radio, and we waited for our birthday to be called and our letters from Santa to be read.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. We all remember those days.
There's a picture of me and my sister listening to the radio, just us by the radio, and on the back of the picture it says listening to Santa on. We knew that was WMSA, and that's the station that did it. Every day at 5:00 or 5:30, I think it was. But yeah, legendary. Big, a lot of traditions.
Yeah,
for sure.
So Joel, talk about the impact. Talk about I mean, I think we know, but how much it's not just AM, FM radio anymore. There's so many outlets. And how is AM, FM radio going to survive 10, 15, 20 years down the road? How is it going to survive? It's competing against podcasts. It's competing against the Spotify's of the world. It's competing against YouTube. It's competing against iHeartRadio, all these different outlets and avenues. And do you see AM, FM radio being able to survive?
Only if they start changing the way they operate. It's gonna have to. Unfortunately, I think it might have to blow itself up before it gets better. I mean, it's just a matter. You got a lot of these companies, I think, coming to the realization that they can't. The way that they're doing it, it's not being profitable anymore. And I think the reason is because if you go across the country, like every station sort of sounds the same now. Used to back in the day, like each station would sound, different. They still play the hits or whatever, but in between the hits, they play like some things that were more regional, more centered around the area where the station was located. Same goes for what was being talked about in these stations. A lot of these stations are talking about Hollywood gossip, and it's like, is that really resonating with listeners? So I hope that there's going to be like a rebirth of radio, sort of like with vinyl. Like 15, 20 years ago, if you had told me like, oh, records and vinyl are back in, I'm like, come on, but I mean, they actually sold more records last year than they did CDs. Who's buying CDs? But still, there seems to be, like, people talk about Spotify and YouTube, and those things aren't radio. I feel like Spotify is more of a competitor to the record store, where you can go and buy an album, listen to an album. Radio is like, you have, well, it could be music, it could be talk, but you have, there's a humanity there. There's people involved. That's radio. I think operators need to realize that's what radio is. Years ago, when the iPad when the iPod first got popular, radio stations and some companies tried to compete with the iPod by sounding like an iPod, getting rid of personality, getting rid of the sizzle, the production value with the jingles, and they got rid of it. And our ratings went down. I mean, they plummeted. People would actually email saying, "Why do you guys sound different?" They couldn't articulate, but they knew something was different, and the difference was us. We weren't there. It was all talk for 7 seconds, and that's it. Don't talk any. That was an actual rule at some of these places. Talk for 7 seconds. You could barely set up a bit, let alone do a bit in 7 seconds. So that failed. So I think stations need to stop competing with Spotify, could stop competing with these streaming platforms, and start being better radio stations. I also think that a lot of these radio companies need to chop out. They're very top heavy right now. A lot of these corporations are so top heavy with layer upon layer upon layer of vice presidents of programming and regional program directors and brand men. It's like, get rid of those people, start investing in the local talent, and you're going to win. You're going to make money. I mean, people still listen to the radio. There's this notion that people don't listen to the radio. People are listening to the radio. Are they as passionate about the radio as they were 30 years ago? Probably not. But that's your fault. That's the people who's, that's the operator's fault, because they have basically painted themselves into this corner where every decision they make is based on spreadsheets and research. And that's fine. Data's great to have. As a corporation, you should have, and you should, pay attention to it. But you can hear it when you listen to a radio station. You should hear some blood in it. You should hear some soul. And if you go around from station to station, especially in certain markets, you hear a lot of you can tell it was programmed by an algorithm and not a human being. That's the big difference. And it goes for, anything really. I think that's what's going to, so to answer your question, did I answer your question? I kind of answered your question. I think in order for it, I think it's still viable, but I think I think we're in the process of that right now. I think COVID actually sped it up. I think people are realizing there's other ways to do it in a more efficient, affordable manner, i.e. work from home. That's a big one. And a week before I got let go from KISS FM in Cleveland, I got let go back in November as part of this huge company-wide reduction in force, is what they call it. And I got let go. It wasn't just me. It was a bunch of people. I did a walkthrough of the building a week before I got let go. And I was looking around going, this is so much real estate and there's nobody here. I thought they're going to have to downsize. They're going to have to, and sure enough, they just announced, I guess, a couple of months ago that the iHeart building or the iHeart studios and everything here in Cleveland are consolidating and moving down to a smaller location because there's just not, and honestly, I feel like these changes do need to happen. You do need to pare down because you can't really operate a radio station the same way you were operating a radio station back in 1985. You just can't. It's just not feasible. So I get why they're doing it. But as far as like the viability of radio, it's still strong as ever. It's just, I think we're going through some growing pains right now. In some ways, a lot of stations out there are still very successful, you know, but did I answer your question? I think I did.
Yes, absolutely. Well, what do you know, because this was some of the things, and you kind of brought it up, you know, the pay for North Country Radio is not great. So that's what's got me thinking, is North Country AM, FM radio, our local stations. Do you ever see that becoming do you see that becoming an issue for us? Because it's got to be hard for these guys. These guys aren't just making a living being the DJ at a North Country radio station, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, it all really depends on if they're making money. If they're making money, I think I think they do okay, right? I mean, but again, I'm sure they're not getting paid a whole lot of money, but I mean, if I could make money in that area, I'd be back in that area in a heartbeat. I love that area. I mean, I want to retire to that area, you know? But I think there'll always be a place for stations like that, community radio stations. And there has to be. I mean, that's what radio is.
Right.
You know?
And there's a few that, you know, still do. It's funny. There's, so I live in the Adirondacks, and about an hour from Utica.
Okay.
So there's a radio station that I can pick up here. It's an FM station, but only FM because that's the dial it's on. It is an AM radio station through and through. You know, they do the swap and shop. They do the menu at the Senior Citizen Center. You know, all the stuff that we had. I
love those stations. I love those stations.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there were more of them. I mean, when I was a kid, it's like, oh, here we go again with the obituaries. Okay. But I mean, that's local information. That's stuff that, I mean, I actually will search the TuneIn app and look for, you know, mom and pop. I mean, I like to hear radio words and all. I mean, I think it makes it interesting. It's like, you know, I don't want to hear, perfect radio is boring. I love perfect radio. I love major market, big, shiny radio, but I also love, you know, just like college radio and something that's real, you know? Because like we were talking earlier, everything sounds the same now. But yeah, what's the station what station is that? What is it on? What frequency? It's on FM?
Yeah, it's a country station. I'll look it up.
Is it not, it's not Lowville, 99.3 out of Lowville?
That is the one. That's the one.
Is that one? Yeah, I've heard those guys. Yeah. Yeah, another community radio station for sure.
You know, they do the remotes from the county fair, you know. And,
oh yeah. That's how back when I was in the North Country. I used to remember we had no promotional vehicle. I mean, here in Cleveland at iHeart, they had, you know, just a fleet of vehicles for each station. But you know, when I was working at Mix 96, WVNC in Canton, I remember having to, you know, take the table, you know, where we put the prize wheel on and load up my little Ford Escort and drive out to the Ogdensburg, whatever it was. We went to, you know, like a barbecue in Richville or something. And, you know, and yeah, that was old school. That was like, you were a one-man show back then. It was amazing when I went to, I think it was Syracuse, and when we would do like remote appearances and stuff, and we actually had a staff that would actually set everything up for me. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I don't have to do anything. I would help out, but it was crazy. That's when I really made it. When I showed up at a promo event, I didn't do anything. It's fantastic.
I think, and I might be speaking out of line here, Joel, that I feel like the local stations though find it cheaper to hear from somebody that's like in Cleveland and run it through their program than it is to have an actual local person there, because financing, especially, you know, as well as I do, we just came through the pandemic. I'm sick of talking about it. We've talked about it for a whole year when we started this show, but financially, our North Country is very, very tight. And so it's and like small community radios, they're tight. I know for a fact, and I've done this for a while, I've been broadcasting since 2010, basketball games. It's tough even for me to go out and get sponsors for basketball, even to have them throw me $25. It's tough for people to actually give money. So that's why I'm conflicted about what, you and Joey were talking about. It's like, I'm hoping that the local stations stay there, but I don't know if the finances are ever going to come back like that.
They're starting to come back in the major markets. I mean, even here in Cleveland, we had the same problem with COVID. I mean, it's everywhere. It's tight here. There's companies now that are doing the same thing that the North Country stations are doing. They're getting talent from outside of the market. In fact, I just signed up with a company called Virtual Jock, and it's basically I'm on a roster of personalities that, there are stations out there that are suffering financially, so they have to sort of, pad out their air staffs with, other people who aren't local, and it's not ideal, but for these companies that still want to have personality on the air, they do this. So I do this Virtual Jock thing, and basically, stations will say, I want this guy on my station, and then they do a barter thing, and so, but a lot of stations do, and it's big markets now too that are doing it, which I never thought I would see that, but you got a lot of stations that will use personalities that aren't local. As long as like, for instance, me being on in Montreal, I think it makes sense because, like, I know the market. I grew up in that area. I know kind of what the landscape is. I mean, I'm not very good at French. I took French. Shout out to Mr. Dahlbeck, by the way, right, Joey? Shout out to Mr. Dahlbeck. Is Bert Dahlbeck still alive?
He is.
He is.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, cheers to Mr. Dahlbeck. He was my neighbor for many years too.
Yes.
But the only reason I picked French for a language was so I would be able to try to understand what the DJs on Montreal stations were saying. Didn't work. They talk too damn fast, but little aside there.
Well, and that's funny you just brought that up, because that was something I had written down was how hard is it for you from Cleveland to portray that you're a DJ working in Montreal, or is that what you're trying to portray?
I never try to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. Never say I'm here in Montreal or anything like that. I'm definitely here in Montreal, and I know what's going on in Montreal. I mean, obviously the Habs, and not just that though either. Like, I'll always try to find out what's if there's any sort of festivals or street fairs going on. Obviously, it's a lot more now than it was over the past year. There's nothing open, starting to reopen there now. But I think that's the key. If you're a personality on a radio station and you're not local, as long as you know what's happening in that market, and the listeners will know if you're not invested in that market. They know. They that's one thing about radio listeners now, is that they know their BS meter or whatever. They know nonsense when they hear it. So I think that's the key, as long as you're invested in the market. But I think you're going to start seeing that a lot more. A lot of these people are doing it from their home. I do it from my car. I mean, I do it. The acoustics are great. The acoustics are great in the car, by the way. I hear it's all. How do I sound now? Is I echoey? It's like echoey or hollow or something, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, but I think you're going to see more of that. People working from home and remote broadcasting and things like that. And studios downsizing and real estate getting smaller.
So you sit in your car for 4 hours?
No. No, I did not sit in my car for 4 hours. It's the magic of radio. It's the magic of radio. But no, I saw a video of a guy in the UK that's where I got the idea from. He was like so many other broadcasters. He had to couldn't go into work, so he had to figure out how am I going to be on the radio. Well, he figured his apartment's got crappy acoustics, so he did it from his car, and it sounded great. He just records in his car. I run it through a processor here, and sounds like I'm in a studio for the most part. I mean, you can sort of tell. If you're a radio pro, you can say, "Oh, that sounds a little hollow," but it's getting the job done, So,
I saw today your post with your little tribute to Canada Day.
Yeah.
What you have your top Canadian songs? Is that what it was?
No, it's basically it's something I've been working on for just pecking at for years. Just I have an entire playlist of nothing but Canadian content, because and that goes back to growing up in that area. It's a very unique area. Growing up in that area, you have an entirely alternate, musical vocabulary. All the American hits, but you get all these great Canadian bands that never did anything. Not just the Tragically Hip either. I'm talking about all sorts of different. So that was what that was based on. It's still working. I'm still adding to it. I think if you started it now, it would last 26 hours without a repeat. So it can be done, radio. You can play songs and not repeat them that much. It can be done. So yeah, that's what that was. It was my sort of like Happy Canada Day thing. So, you know, and then what else? I got the hip shirt on. I did the Canada Day podcast or the Canada Day playlist. Yeah.
So
are they letting people back in? Are they letting people back into Canada yet or no?
No.
No.
Any light at the end of the tunnel with that goes? Because I would love to go back up there.
Seems like it just every time the date pops up, they add another month. That's just seems what it is right now.
They got commercial vehicles going across the border, but that's about it. And there's no
right.
And I got family over there in Montreal and Quebec and Cornwall and Ontario, so we're missing all them. Joel,
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I did want to bring up one thing. You got to describe. You were part of the Rubber Room. Can you?
Yeah.
Can you? You got to tell me about this. I mean, what a great name.
Yeah, when I went to Chicago, I obviously came from upstate New York, and they wanted to pair me with somebody who was local, to give that local flavor to it. So they paired me up with a girl, and basically it kind of grew up, blew up from there. We started adding characters to the show. And we settled on 2 main sidekicks. One was this girl, Jill, who was just hanging out at the station. She was like a radio geek, and she just hung out at the station, and she basically just hung out so much that we ended up putting her on the air, and she was funny. The other guy was this kid, Jason, who was another local kid who was like a production intern, and we put him on. It became a show. It was like and we wanted a name for it, and I think I didn't actually name the show. I think it was named by the assistant program director. I think we actually stole it from another show. I think they stole it from another, like a rock show in Cincinnati or something. And we call it the Rubber Room. And we were on for, 7 to midnight, 7 to 11 every night. And back then we did quite a lot of stuff on that show. A lot of stuff that you can't do on the radio anymore. And I wouldn't recommend you do on the radio anymore, for sure. But it was fun. We had a great time. We had a nice fan base. I still talk to those guys. I mean, it was a big show. It was a lot of fun, a lot of creative freedom there, which is weird because it was a big corporation. It was Clear Channel, which is now iHeart, and a lot of corporations, they have a reputation of not letting you really do anything. But I gotta tell you, they let us go pretty well there. I mean, I look back and I go, I can't believe I lasted that long, because some of the things that we did were like, ooh. But my program director was basically, go ahead, push the envelope, get people talking, because we were a struggling radio station at the time. We were the new station in Chicago, and we were going up against the station that had been around 20 years at that point, and we were just basically throwing stuff at the wall. I always told the people on my show, like, let's just throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And if we end up with a floor full of crap, then so be it. At least it's more interesting than what they're doing across the street, So the Rubber Room, yep, there was a lot of great memories there for sure. A lot of fun. Chicago.
So being in Cleveland, I'm just assuming you have, but I haven't. I've never heard Pete or Dave talk that they have. I'm assuming you've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah. Been to a Browns game. I caught the tail end of a Cavs game when LeBron wasn't playing, by the way, which is like the one time, Indians and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Absolutely, I've been there a couple of weeks. In fact, when I was working at the radio station, we would do events there and stuff. Every year there was this thing called the High School Rock Off, where high school bands would come and compete, and we would do it live from the Rock Hall, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's stuff like that you take for granted here in Cleveland. It's like right here, and people. I feel like people, and the Christmas Story house is also here. The movie A Christmas Story, the house that was filmed, is here as well. So there's a bunch of cool things here. We got the West Side Market's here, which is this huge market. The Rock Hall's great. You haven't been to the Rock Hall yet? I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I mean, you walk in, there's Michael Jackson's glove, there's Jimmy Page's guitar. I mean, it's like right there. So, and it's right on the lake. It's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, when I came to Cleveland back in 2006, Cleveland was, for lack of a better word, it was in rough shape. It was a little bit rough around the edges. I don't know if it's the LeBron effect or what, but since 2006 and now, it's day and night. I mean, it's a fantastic city. I mean, I would love to stay here for the rest of my life. and then retire to Brazier, but it's great. I mean, the great restaurants, they've done a lot with the lakefront in the last, 15 years. Lots of stuff to do. A great park system. They have the Cleveland Metro Parks, which we've been exploring since COVID hit. And Cleveland for many years was like a punchline, the mistake by the lake and all that, but it's really a fine city. It's really a nice city. Great place to we live in the western suburbs, but it's pretty cool here. Highly recommend. Come to Cleveland.
On the sports side of things, Joel, for somebody that followed baseball, I think Cleveland was the second one after Baltimore. When Baltimore built their cozy little ballpark, Cleveland got rid of Municipal Stadium and they built the baseball park that they are in now. I think they were the second ones, and it was just it started a new architectural style of ballparks, not those old cookie cutter ballparks. And Cleveland was one of the front runners in that to do that.
Yeah. I can't compare it to anything, but I mean, it's a beautiful facility for sure. And we did events down there as well. I think I actually hosted a in between game thing on the Jumbotron or something down there. But yeah, it's great. It's downtown Cleveland's cool because Brown Stadium's right there, but like where the Cavs play, where the Indians play, like literally right next door. So you got if basketball season overlaps with baseball season, and you got something else going on, it gets crazy down there. But I love it. I mean, I do love it. Part of me, loves the North Country and would love to live there. But at the same time, I've lived in a city for so long. I can't imagine not having a bazillion restaurants to choose from. And there's a big concert that's in town. I don't have to drive 3 hours to Syracuse or Albany to see a show, but you take the good with the bad, you take the good with the bad.
I saw the 1981 All-Star game, Major League Baseball. Game in 81 at the old Municipal Stadium.
Yeah, there was I think a 30 on 30 on that. I think they did a special on that, like a documentary.
That was the strike shortened season.
The summer when they strike. Yep. See, even I know about that. I'm not even a sports guy. I knew about the 81 strike for sure. That was a big one. Cleveland's great.
All the venues being right downtown, because I remember the Cavs used to play at Richfield Coliseum, which is almost about 30-40 minutes south of the city.
That's where all the big shows were too. They got rid of that place, and most of the shows are at the arena and where the Cavs play downtown. But yeah.
So speaking of music shows, do they still have the Blossom Music Festival?
It's the Blossom. It's not really a music festival. It's sort of like SPAC, Saratoga Performing Arts Center. It's sort of like an outdoor shell type thing where all the big shows come in. rock shows and hip hop shows. That's where summertime.
I saw the Moody Blues there.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's a great venue, but it's a pain in the ass to get in and out of before and after shows. Sort of like SPAC or Finger Lakes Performing Arts Center, any of those really. But
reminds me very much of SPAC or Riverbend in Cincinnati.
Right. Yep.
Very similar.
Same idea for sure.
Yep.
Well, Joel, I wrote some other things down here because just curious, because I know you've interviewed a lot of big names. What's the best interview? What comes to mind? What's the one that jumps to you? Or how about give us some names? I know Mom mentioned Justin Timberlake to me the other day. They interviewed him. Give our people an idea of some of the people that you've chatted with.
The first person I ever interviewed who was a celebrity was at Mix 96 in Canton. And it was Barry Williams. Does that name ring a bell? It's Barry Williams.
Brady Bunch?
Greg Brady, that's right. He did a book signing in Canton. I was like, holy shit, this is Greg Brady. This is Greg Brady. So yeah, Justin Timberlake was definitely the biggest one. That's the one that got me a lot of press and like the London Sun and the New York Post, and because it did not end well. Let's just leave it at that. You can find it online. It's really obnoxious. I'm a total ass in the interview. I'm totally just trying to, bait him. I was young. I was trying to get people to talk about my show. It wasn't my best moment, but people still ask me about it. I literally got, was it somebody from England? I think on Instagram direct messaged me and said that he used to listen to The Stream all the time. when I was on in Chicago. I'm like, I got in the UK, this kid who's now a grown-up radio guy. And he said he would listen to us, which is mind-blowing. But basically, I was asking Timberlake questions he didn't want to answer. He had just answered these same questions on a hip-hop station like the night before. And he was all like Mr. Cool with the hip-hop station. But he talks to me, the pop guy, and he's like Mr. Straight-laced, white bread, milk toast, boring guy. So the interview did not end well. We started yelling at each other. He called me a bad name, and he hung up. And that was definitely I wouldn't say that was my best interview, because it was just it was the shit show. Right. But I'm glad I did it, because people still talk about it. But it's funny. This is random. I'm not a fan of this person's music, but I interviewed J-Lo, and I came across. I totally forgot that I even interviewed her, and I came across audio. Just going through audio, looking for a job. You got to put a tape together, so you listen to a lot of audio. And I'd forgotten I interviewed her, and it was a kind of a fluffy interview, but I thought it was so comfortable sounding. I was like, wow, I actually did a pretty good job in that interview, But so yeah, like as far as big names go, Timberlake, Puff Daddy, J-Lo. Trying to think. Obama called, but it was such, and I'm not going to get political, but it was such a talking point. It wasn't. It was presented to me as like an interview, like I'm going to talk to the guy, but it was like he was not having that. It was just like he was campaigning for Hillary, is what it was, and it was just like so like icky. It just felt icky, and it would have felt icky if it was a Republican. It wasn't any partisan stuff. It just felt like I'm being used right now. This is gross. This is not an interview. This is him pretending that he likes Hillary. Okay, he doesn't even like Hillary. So that wasn't a good interview. But I did interview Michelle Obama when she was campaigning for Barack, and that also was not my best work. I was so immature. I was just immature. That part of that, and the funny thing about that interview was as soon as I got done, the Obama campaign called my program. I wasn't the boss at the time. I was just, an on-air guy. They called my boss and like, you cannot air this. You cannot air this. And I said to my program, I'm like, you kidding me? We have to air. This is fantastic. This is great. And he agreed, but he also knew that the Obama campaign was spending a lot of money, not only on our station, but like, the other stations in the building. So the funny thing about it is I never aired it on my station. And I was like, God, really? But the station, the rock station, literally across the hall from my station, got a hold of it, and they played it on their show. And of course, I think they uploaded it too, but it's not, again, not my best work. Again, sometimes, looking back, I can say this now because I've grown, as a human. I'm a parent now. You grow. You realize that the things you do, or you're doing it just to get people, and that's stupid. But no regrets. So yeah, Michelle and Barack. Never Trump. Never talked to him. Timberlake, Puff Daddy, Missy Elliott was one. She's a big rapper in the early 2000s. That was kind of cool. I'm trying to think who else. Chris Cornell, Soundgarden, lead singer of Soundgarden. He came by. He was actually, this is weird. He was promoting a pop album. So doing a pop album. He came by, and that was kind of cool. But those are some of the more ones that are sort of top of mind anyway. Fall Out Boy.
So it all started with Greg Brady. It did. Yeah. Yep. And the Bare Naked Ladies, they came by Mix 96 when they were just before they broke in the States. I was going to say, I remember that because that in that time frame, I was working for the post office, and we would listen to you. Listen to you in the morning. I remember that. I thought you were going to say the Bare Naked Ladies before Greg Brady, but that
was after. Yeah, but yeah, I think about that garage often. Actually, I miss it in a weird way. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a lot of money, but sometimes you just long for simpler times. I guess I don't know. Just
sure.
We sounded great. That station sounded great. I don't care what anybody. That sounded like it came from a large market, and it didn't. It came from a garage. The theater of the mind.
It's funny how you say that, because we started broadcasting. I did coaching, and then I got out of that, and I said, you know what? Physically I wasn't able to coach anymore, but I could still run my mouth, and I knew a little bit about sports. So what do? So I bought 2 cheap headphones and a little digital recorder, hooked them both up, and I sat in the stands and did games with my first partner, and that's how we started. And but it's great. They're great stories. So that's how we all start, from nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty. I mean the beauty of this time is that there's so much technology that allows us to do this stuff. I mean, it's honestly, I'm getting bored now because like I lost a job here in Cleveland back in the fall. I'm still doing 94.7 Hits FM in Montreal. I'm doing the virtual jock thing. I'm trying to like piecemeal a livelihood together. It's really weird. I've never had to do this before. It's like you used to have a job and that was what I got paid for. Now it's like you've got to so I might actually start a podcast again. I did a podcast before. I did an 80s podcast where I talked about every song that ever hit the charts in the 80s. But little did I know there was over 4,000 songs that charted in the 1980s. I talk about every single one. Little plug for that podcast, by the way. I'm going to listen. A lot of North Country memories in that podcast too. So I talk about North Country radio and I talk about the songs. But this week,
what's the name of that podcast? What was the name of it?
This Week in the 80s. Yeah, it ended like last August. It was an entire year. I was going to do a season 2, but I got let go. So, but it's still available on iHeartRadio and all the other podcast places. But so I may actually try another one. I don't know what, but I'm getting bored. That's my point. Like I'm getting bored here. I'm getting restless. I find myself pacing a lot. I need to get back on or in a radio station here in Cleveland, ideally. Is anybody watching this from Cleveland? Hire me. I need to work. Okay, I need to work here. I need money. I'm a good guy. I think anybody who's worked for me knows. I feel like it's a job interview all of a sudden. My resume on video.
You're hired. There you go.
Nice.
Well, you got upwards of 75 people watching this tonight, Joel. So there's a
really? I didn't realize. Oh, this is on now. This is on Facebook. This is on now.
Yeah,
that's right. We're Facebook Live. I forgot about that.
Oh, I forgot you said Facebook Live. Okay. Hey, everybody. Happy Canada Day. Tragically Hip. Let's go.
Tragically Hip.
Funny how you said that, Joel. I'm in the process of taking a spot in our basement. We have a finished basement here, and I'm breaking it off into a room to hopefully do podcasting. So you're gonna section it off and like put up like soundproofing and all that. Yeah. Just
I wish I could
sit in a little room and do my thing. So we'll see how that happens.
This is almost like an attic up here. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Piece of cake.
Right. Easier said than done, right?
No. A couple 2x4s and some sheetrock, you're good to go.
Yeah. There's definitely, I've actually looked at soundproofing online to see if it's anything I can do up here. There really isn't much I can do, but there's definitely ways you can do it. The thing about podcasting is that now there's just so many podcasts.
Oh yeah.
Like how many, like what's the average listenership of, a podcast? Like, everybody says like podcast, but I think it's going to level down. I think a lot of these podcasts are probably going to go away because people realize I can't make any money with this unless they get on some sort of, it's hard. It's definitely a, filled up lane to be in right now. But
I listen to a podcast and it's, it's 3 well-known people that do this podcast, but they always refer to our listener, because they know that they're not getting huge numbers.
Yeah, right.
Well, because it's saturated,
They say it takes 50 episodes to even start to get something moving. So, and I only did 52 episodes of my podcast. So I just stopped right when it, they say it's supposed to take off. So, but yeah, I may start doing something like a YouTube channel or something. I don't know. I mean, what is this? I never had to deal with this before. It's been 15 years since I've had to look for a job, a full-time job. So yeah, I see people doing like, YouTube things and I don't know. Pivot. That's the key word. Pivot. That's a big corporate word. You have to pivot.
Yeah, we do this now live on Facebook. We also record it and we download it on YouTube. So we have our YouTube channel also.
Right. Yeah, so, and your show is specifically for that area. So obviously, I think you get a lot of these guys will just do a sports show, and it's like too broad. So how do you stand out if you're just doing a sports show? You're doing a, more keyed in thing. I think it's probably gonna be more effective for sure.
Yeah, and we've done over 50, right, Joe?
Oh, easily. Yeah. We're pushing 100.
Yeah, I can say you've been doing it for a while now, for sure.
We're pushing 100. You could be number 100. I haven't counted in a while, but I know the last time I did count, we were in the 80s. So
number 100. Do I get a free toaster or something, or
you get a
koozie?
A koozie.
Ooh, I want one of those. Absolutely.
I'll drop it off to Uncle Don's to Pa
Yes.
next week when we have Manhattan. So.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, he's coming up on my grandfather is coming up on his 102nd birthday in a couple of weeks. So.
Wow.
Unbelievable. In fact, we're going to interview him. I'm planning actually to. I should have done this years ago, but I'm actually going to interview him about his life and get it on audio, just to have it. Just to because he's got stories. He's got stories, and so that's the plan. Next time I go home is to carve out some time to interview him. So.
Well, I wrote. Obviously, that was something. I mean, I was going to save it for later, but since he got brought up, I mean, we can't. We couldn't have this show without talking about Donald, and he'll be 102 on July 10th.
That's right.
Awesome.
And still, if I could go over there every day, he'd want me there every day for Manhattan at 4:00 every day. And
that's what's keeping him going. That's what I always joke, but like he's pickled inside. That's just because he doesn't have a problem, but he definitely has a drink, on occasion. And
well, mom scolded me the other day because I made the drink before your mom got there to make the drink. She didn't know I was coming over, so she always comes over at 4:00 to make his one shot of whiskey, 1 shot of vermouth. Well, Manhattan to me is 2 shots of whiskey, and she knew immediately by looking at the glass. Joey made your drink, didn't he? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a half. That's not a full drink. That's a half. She does the same thing to me too. She's like, "How many drinks did you give him?" I'm like, "Come on, Mom. I'm only home a couple times a year. I'll make sure he gets where he needs to go."
My great grandmother passed away in Messina at the age of 103. But when she turned 100, Mrs. Emery, who was with the Messina Observer years ago, she went and interviewed her for the paper. And she asked, what's her goal to longevity? And she goes, hard work and a glass of wine every day, red wine every day. So obviously the old folks have something going on here with the booze. So
it's true. You always hear about these people who this Japanese lady or whatever who died at 110. She says the same thing. They drink. I don't know. There's something to it.
Joel,
please drink responsibly.
And what is it? Yes, absolutely. And what did he always, I'm sure you've heard him say it. He'll take that first sip and just say nectar of the gods.
Nectar. Absolutely.
I gotta use
every time. I will say that the most inebriated I've ever been is with my grandfather. 2008, we were living in Cleveland, but we took a summer trip home that year, like we always do. And we started at 3 p.m. By 8 p.m., I was passed out on his couch in his living room on Vice Road. Here's the thing. I was so sick the next day. I was sick for 2 days after that. Like, no joke. I was legitimately bedridden. The next day, he woke up and played. This is when he was still playing golf. He played, I think, 18 holes of golf. I
probably
woke up the next day.
It was probably
maybe.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next day and I said to my mom, like, "Oh, how's Pa? How's he feeling?" Like, what are you talking about? He's out playing golf. What? I mean, we were hammered. Most inebriated I've ever been.
Practice makes perfect.
2008. So that's 13 years ago. So he's 88.
He was 89.
89 years old.
Yeah, playing golf. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got to tell you, Joel. I mean, he's meant so much to me in my life for the past 25 years. I mean, I was 24. He's exactly 50 years older than me. I was 24 years old, and I got a phone call on a Sunday morning from my buddies, Chris Hall and Kevin Villeneuve. Joey, hey, we got a foursome today at Meadowbrook, and Mike Smith, I think it was Mike Smith, Smitty, can't make it. Can you come and fill in? And I said, all right, well, who's the fourth? And they said, Don Locke. I said, Don Locke, isn't he like 106 years old? What the hell are we playing golf with him for? So I get there and that started my relationship with your grandfather, and it's been, I'm 52, gonna be 52 soon, so 28 years of just the best time being able to be around him.
Yeah.
Pete and Dave would love him. He's as staunch a Republican as you're ever gonna find.
So here's I actually have a Don Locke story.
Oh yeah,
you do?
Indirectly, it's an indirect story. Now I work at the Inlet Golf Course, owned by Roger Lind, who also he worked for Toro. Okay, he just retired this year. Okay. But he serviced pretty much every golf course north of Syracuse and west into Vermont with, that used Toro. And so I asked him the other day, because we played it at Meadowview, and I asked him if he knew Mickey Locke. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I know him. He goes, I knew his dad, Don Locke. He says, every time he would call on the phone, he goes, this is Don Locke. And he starts making this imitation of Don Locke.
He might have been talking about Stanley Locke, right? Because Stanley was Mickey's dad.
Okay. Well, he said Don. Yeah. So maybe.
Oh, really? Maybe he thought, okay.
Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was.
But it's still possible.
Yeah.
Because Stanley passed a long time ago. So
okay. 84, yeah.
Yeah. But I just think it's funny that because he did say Don Locke.
Yeah. He's a legend up there, I tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
a fun fact about me, I played golf at Meadowbrook. That was one of the few athletic things I did as a kid. I was on the golf team with Nick Lefebvre and Joey Brown. I wasn't very good.
My brother-in-law, Joey Brown's my brother-in-law.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, that was 89. I think I was like ninth grade. Yeah, I was in ninth grade. Maybe 10th too, I think. Yeah, wasn't very good though. I spent a lot of time at Meadowbrook for sure though. I mean, taking golf lessons with Mickey back when I was in sixth grade during the summer. A lot of good memories there for sure. I haven't been up to that course in years. I would love to drive around, check it out, see what it looks like.
It's pretty. Mickey's got it really nice right now. So yeah,
I remember one time I did make a birdie on 2, and I remember that was a big deal because I was really crappy. I made a birdie on 2, and I remember I think Joey was really excited. He's like, "Oh my god!" I think everybody just kind of cracked themselves. They couldn't believe that just happened. My one big sports story.
Yeah, but that's all right. Seems like Meadowbrook creeps into our conversations a lot on this show. So
is that right?
Yeah. It seems to. Obviously, we get a lot of our guests are SLC alums, so it seems like Meadowbrook is going to get brought up at some point. So
yeah.
Well, Joel, I did have a couple more things. I was going to ask you, not who inspired you, because you kind of brought that up earlier, but I had written down greatest DJ of all time.
Ooh.
In your opinion.
When you say DJ, we're talking about music DJ or just radio personality?
Oh, I'll go that broad. Yeah, because I mean, okay. I sometimes I'm listening to the radio, not always for music. I'm listening to a voice. So
right. I know he's a polarizing figure, but I think when you talk about greatest radio personality, you have to bring up Howard Stern. I know some people hate him; they just hate the guy. But I think anybody who doubts the guy's talent we talk about broadcasting, listen to the 9/11 show that he did on 9/11, because everybody was praising Letterman and Leno for doing shows a week after the fact. He was on the air when that stuff was going down, and he was sensitive and thoughtful and funny and informational. And so I think definitely he is my choice as far as a personality, because everybody who's on the radio doing anything remotely interesting now, it came from him. And some people would say, Steve Dahl was before him and this guy was before him. Yes, but he brought it to a new level, and he really was obviously a pioneer. So I think he needs to be part of that conversation for sure. As far as radio DJs, I mean, growing up, the big guy that I would listen to was Terry DeMonte from Show'em FM. He was the first big personality like a guy was doing a morning show who was not just doing, time and temperature and talking up intros to songs. He was actually, doing bits and, having conversations and stuff. So he was big. There's a guy from Burlington that I would hear on during trips to Plattsburgh, the station called 95 Triple X, which still exists. But back in the mid 80s, there was a guy named Walt Speck who I loved. I thought he was really kind of funny and self-deprecating, which you didn't hear a lot on radio back then. Back then, it was like, the boss jock and talking up the intros and yeah, everything's cool. This guy was kind of like making jokes on himself. I thought it was kind of cool. But best of all time, I've heard so many tapes of different guys. A lot of the good guys are not around anymore. I would just hear them on tape. Guys like Larry Lujak from Chicago. And now I'm just name dropping, and these names probably don't mean anything. But if you look him up, that's another guy who was like just not your typical top 40 DJ. He was like, he had opinions. He would be snarky before snarky was really a thing on top 40 radio. So that was a guy that I really liked too. But who was your favorite? That's a good question. We talked about Sandy. He's definitely
Well, when it came, I can think of working midnights in the post office in Watertown and listening to Larry King.
Oh, Larry King. Yeah, I thought you were going to say Art Bell, but yeah, Larry King, absolutely. Yeah.
Larry King, and his sub back in the day was Jim Bohannon, who still, I think, is still doing things. I think he leads off for Elijah on WMSA. I think he's on
MSA. Yeah, he's on late at night. Yep.
So those two names come to mind, but I used to love, listening to voices, and obviously a lot of mine are sports related. I loved listening to Francesa and the Mad Dog and those kind of guys.
Rome and all those guys.
Yeah, Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd is somebody that raves about. He talks about Howard Stern all the time. Yeah. And again, another polarizing figure. It doesn't matter what you think or how you feel, but you cannot question the impact that the man had on radio is Rush Limbaugh in that way. So,
and I think that's the key in being a successful radio personality. You have to be polarizing. You can't just be like, unless you're Ryan Seacrest, and Ryan Seacrest is very straight down the middle. He's not going to offend anybody. He's just straight, and that serves a purpose. And we ran his show in Cleveland, and I will say this: anytime we needed something from Seacrest, he was on it. I don't know how this guy did it. We need a script. There's a local thing happening in Cleveland. Can you send me back something local? And amazingly, this is a guy who has like 10 different shows. He would, send stuff back. So very efficient, but kind of boring. Kind of a boring show. Not really my bag. But I think most air personalities, in order to be successful, you sort of have to be. You either got to be loved or hated. If you're right down the middle, who cares? Who cares? I guess in some capacity. I'm not saying like. Like for instance, Elijah Winfrey doesn't need to go on the air and start, pissing people off. I'm not saying that needs to happen because that's not what they do. But so I think, you just named all the people who are polarizing, right? Rush Limbaugh, Howard Stern, either hate him or love him. So yeah.
I'll bring up a couple names. I'm a huge Dan Patrick fan. I love his show, sports wise. So I follow him quite a bit. Howard Stern, I used to listen to him when I was stationed downstate, late 80s, early 90s. I used to listen to him every morning when I drove into, I think he was on TS, or no, he was on.
What city?
New York. He was in New York.
Oh, it was K-Rock. Yeah, it was 92
K-Rock. There it is. Yep. Yeah. Yep. So I listened to him on the drive in. But here's a name I'm going to throw out to you, and I still listen to him this day. And it goes back to 84 when I started listening to him out of Rochester, New York.
Oh, okay. No, not Bob Lonsberry.
No.
Rochester.
You're probably never going to guess this guy because he's all over the place.
Oh, Brother Weeze?
Brother Weeze, yep.
Oh, yep. Brother Weeze. Yeah, I know Brother Weeze. I was on his show. I used to work in Rochester at PXY. Yeah, I was at 98 PXY, and he worked down the hall at CMF, the rock station.
Yep, 96.
And
yeah.
And I was on his show one time because I think he was at one of the concerts we did at PXY, which was the top 40 station in Rochester. Yep. And he was at that show, and I was on stage. And this is back when I was like a lot heavier than I am now. And he was basically ripping on me on his show. So the next day on my show, I ripped on him. I got back to him. He called me in, and I was on his show, which was kind of cool because like this is Brother Weeze. This is like he's a legend.
Oh yeah.
In Rochester. He's still doing it. He's still doing it.
Oh yeah.
That's a career right there. That's a career I want. Same place for 40 years.
Well, yeah, in Rochester. He was in CMF with when I first started listening. It was Brother Weeze and Sister Sleaze.
Okay.
That was back in the fall of '84. And
wow.
now he had a falling out with the administrators about money there, and he's over at 95.1 now, which is still in Rochester. But he's still the morning guy, and he's all over the place. But I still listen to him on iHeartRadio.
Yeah, and I would imagine he's making a pretty damn good living down there, being at that same station for that many years. And advertisers love him, and that's the key. If advertisers love you, you're going to have a job. Yep. And he super serves those guys big time. If you listen to his show, he's very good to his advertisers, so that helps definitely.
And that was a huge conspiracy down there, because when he got let go from CMF. There was a clause in there that he couldn't go anywhere else for a year. So people were pissing and moaning about where is Brother Weeze. And all of a sudden he literally to the date, he was signed with 95.1, and he took over the morning program there. So yeah, he's still, I'm surprised. I'm glad to hear you say you know him. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was on his show. He's a very nice guy. He's a very nice guy. But yeah, that was 20 years ago. I was back in 01. I was on a show, or 2000, I think. But yeah, Brother Weeze.
Yeah, I still listen to his show.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Well, Joel, I mean, this has been so enjoyable for some radio geeks to be able to hear some of these names, hear these stories. I mean, again, you're talking about 4 people, counting yourself, that just grew up with AM, FM radio, local radio. And, like I said, I just remember going to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night and getting the transistor radio out and seeing what station I could find from furthest away at, on a clear night, picking something up from Detroit or something, and thinking that was the coolest thing, that I'm able to hear somebody talk from so far away. And, so to be able to talk with you about this stuff is really cool. And we love a little change of pace in our shows, and can't thank you enough for coming on. This is awesome. And can't wait for Pa to see this. And and I can't wait to hear when you interview him and get that audio tape. I think that's going to be pretty cool. So
yeah, I've prepared some questions, and we're going to probably do it over the course of a couple of days when I'm there next time. So thanks for having me, you guys. I'm glad we finally got it done. Finally did it. I know there was some, things happening in the past that we couldn't do it, but now we can do it, and I'm glad we did it. So thanks for having me. I miss it. My wife and I, we miss it, that area of the world very much. And we love it here in Cleveland too. So we'll be up there soon enough.
So before we go, are you going to retire back to the North Country and finish it off by becoming a local DJ around here? Have your own show around here?
I mean, the goal right now is to stay in Cleveland. We want to stay in Cleveland. We're trying to avoid a move, because the last thing I want to do right now is go to a new city, right? Go to a new city, and then 2 years later, we don't like this. We need to move again. I'm tired of the industry telling me where I can live. I don't like that. So I'm going to live here as long as I can. I may have to move at some point, which sucks. If there was an opportunity in the North Country where I could make a living, or at least, I'm not asking to be rich at this point in time. I know the realities of it. I would absolutely move back to the North Country. Probably my second choice. I mean, I would rather move back home than move from here to some other place, to be honest with you. So who knows? You never know. I mean, I've done so much over the last 20 years that I probably could, be an operations manager up there at some point, But again, the people who are in place there now, they do a good job, and they're not going to leave. And why would they? Unless they want to, see what else is out there. But the same thing that I did 25 years ago. When you're a kid, you want to get out of the North Country. When you're a grown up, you want to go back to the North Country. At least I do. So that's the goal for now. Let's see. Stay tuned for further details.
Yeah. Well, Joel, I for one really appreciate you coming on. I really didn't know what to expect. Like Joey said, we talk about sports all the time, so this is an excellent change for us, and a lot of information. And I really appreciate you coming on, and it was an honor talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, you guys. Take care, and happy 4th. Happy 4th as well.
Same deal.
Well,
all right, you guys. Take care, you guys.
That's going to be it for tonight here on ESS Empire State Sports and the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. For Joey Ream, Dave Bartlett, and myself, Pete Gosaw, and our special guest, Java Joel Murphy. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.